Hello, I'm Magdalena Ball, and I'm going to be reading today from my latest book, Bobish. Bobish is the story of Rebecca Lieberman. Rebecca's my great-grandmother, and this is the story of her migration from Eastern Europe, where her and her family were, like many Jews, being all Jews in Eastern Europe, being persecuted by the pogroms. Rebecca left at the age of 14 and traveled on her own, alone, to New York City. And the first poem that I'm going to read to you is about her arrival on Ellis Island. It's called Empire Erased. It was over in an hour, 1,000 people in an hour. Who dared count the weary passengers disembarking from the cramped steerage, Zwischendeck, lips cracked from sea salt? Bribes, promises, as many illicit exchanges as there were people, as there were dreams. Not so much of something better, but of safety. Someone has to survive to pass on the story. They kept on moving, checkpoint to checkpoint, fingers probing hair, no lice, clothing, old, stiff, cough, lean forward, raise arms, keep going. An empire was erased, just like that. She would never go back. There were people left behind, of course, in the ghetto of her youth, the shtetl, writing names in the air with a finger, waiting for her to send a handful of prepaid tickets, if the streets really were paved with gold. Words were cobblestones beneath her feet, 31 questions in a language she didn't speak. Name, age, sex, nationality, health, how much money was in her pocket. Was she dangerous? At 5 foot tall, with arms like matchsticks, hooded eyes concealing more pain than a malnourished body should be able to hold. How do you answer? She tried and failed to forget her mother's wet eyes, her father's hastily gathered bag of coins, cousins, uncles. Of course they existed somewhere, but who knows what happened to them, their sacrifices, their losses. They're gone. Were they ever there? Keep up the pace. She tried to speak, but the words didn't fit her mouth. There were no papers, only a brown tag pinned to the shoulder, containing a number like a price you might put on cattle. She wasn't for sale. Her number wasn't up this time. So one of the first jobs that Rebecca got when she arrived in New York City, it was her only job, was a seamstress at the ill-fated Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory burnt. It had a terrible fire, and 147 women died in that fire. It was a very horrible conditions that the women were working in. They locked the doors. It was one of the worst industrial disasters in U.S. history. Rebecca didn't go to work on the day of the fire. I do have a poem about that, which I'm not going to read you today. But this one is her first day, set in her first day at work, and maybe a little bit charged by my own homesickness for New York City. So it's called Ephemeral Washington Square. Sometimes something shifted. Maybe it was the way light glinted off asphalt at 8 a.m. when she disembarked from the streetcar into a hustle of steam, cluck and squeak of horse-drawn carts, clank, putter, whistle into the park, past the marble arch, rising like an invitation, engraved an exhortation, the round fountain radiating outward, symmetros. Children and bathers yelling, electric green grass, the shuffle of feet going somewhere. She was going somewhere, absorbing the energy of so many bodies, a million dreams, 1,000 daytime stories, glossolalia. He said, and then she said, "Excuse me, no, excuse me, sorry." City air soft against her cheeks, second-hand hat pulled low over escaping curls, vendors and carts and umbrellas, ice-cold lemonade, 5 cents a glass, sizzling frankfurters, sweet California apples, 6 cents, her heels clacking against cobblestones, across Green Street to Washington Square East. This was a story she was part of, unfolding like a book in brown brick, a corner building, triangular, the particular echoing silence of a crowded stairwell, the lift broken again, where she walked right up to the 9th floor, past fabric bins overflowing with scraps and cutters, tables, hanging fabrics surrounding, and punched a mechanical clock like 100 other girls, each from somewhere, not here, and squeezed into her dark spot for another factory day. So the last poem that I'm going to read today is called Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam is a word, a Hebrew word known as world repair. It's also come to be known as social justice, kind of, I guess, a natural requirement that we all have coming into this world to leave it a better place as a result of our presence. And at some point I mentioned the Lenape. The Lenape are the traditional custodians of New York City, the unceded lands of New York City, and also Pennsylvania, certain areas on the east coast of the U.S., which have never been ceded. And Unami, which I also mention, is the Lenape mother tongue. The physical universe presses against transparent lids. Hush now. 10 calibrations of empty space. Her body is failing, but there is something within she can feel but not touch. Not the shutting organs or nameless pain running along her spinal cord, not the blurring cooking pot lid clattering on the gas stove in a mystery language. Kss, kss, that, hiss, hush. She breathes out sounds, spirit, air, echo, into the tiny apartment, past roaches scurrying over linoleum, dust motes, asbestos, peeling wallpaper, beyond the cracked window pane into the city. Breath condenses, 22 letters into the fabric of existence, dimensions through which a future forms tentative as skin cracks, hands dishwasher gray beneath wool gauntlets, broken charms on the mantle. In a primordial forest of lost childhood, she sits on a mossy rock, alive and not. In this Schrodinger's moment of superposition, where she has not yet died and I have not yet been born. All her life, she has lived with an illusion of solitude, even in a room full of people, side-by-side sewing machines, the roar of city crowds, drunkards at the card table, children pulling at apron strings. She believed her survival nothing more than transgression, like a shark eating her way forward. A boreal owl cries in staccato. Old growth, decaying wood, an aggregation of all she thought lost, living and dead, lichens and fungi. There was so much weight, and now she is light, ready to begin. In the land of the Lenape, a space is opened by grief. She hears a song, not in her native tongue, another, Unami, the familiar voice of dispossession, traces the sound along rivers and creeks, old world and new, the energy of everything that exists. She never sang like this in life, tamped within her body, illness, the long arm of memory, a terror she could not shake. Her eyes glow the shade of forest, open into a timeless, spaceless landscape. Lips wide, letters, numbers, the voice of a girl. She is alone and surrounded, mutes, sibilants, aspirates, the sacred text and the world. Hush now, spectral coordinates along a wavelength of sound. Everywhere green, tea green, sap green, myrtle. Trees are cathedrals, They have been waiting only for us to arrive. Thank you.